My name is Nicholas Bell, and it's my pleasure to be able to speak with Philip Young for his new film, Where the Wind Blows, which is Hong Kong's official submission in the category of Best International Feature at the 95th Academy Awards. So congratulations.
Thanks, Nick.
So it's my understanding that this has been a project developing for quite some time, and it was I know you were working on something else, and then this was an idea that you spoke to several actors about before there was a script. So tell me about how long it took to write that script and how the project came together.
其實我大概呢個劇本算係寫得比較短嘅時間，因為的確我做完上一部戲嗰個 Pop of Call 之後咧，即係踏血尋梅之後咧，咁我有去籌備一啲電影，但係因為喺大陸嗰個 censor 有啲問題，咁我就即刻轉咗嚟拍呢部香港電影，咁就係呢個劇本算係我寫得比較時間比較短，大概1年到啦。咁所以我拍攝過程裏面，我嗰個都仍然喺度寫緊個劇本，即係拍緊嘅時候邊拍邊寫。咁特別係跟住3位主演啦，梁朝偉、郭富城同埋杜娟個角色嗰種情感嗰個走向，佢即係點樣演啊，佢哋嗰種感覺去寫。咁拍攝裏邊認識咗佢哋更加多，所以亦都會喺啲情景裏邊發現咗啲嘢啦，即係佢哋嗰個即係拍攝嘅情景裏邊。咁都唔少係啲即興嘅構思。
Okay, so after I finished Port of Call, I was preparing for another project. The other project got into some issues with the China censor. And so I decided to switch gears and film this Hong Kong film. I spent a comparatively short time on this script. It took about a year, and we were still working on it during production. Especially among the 3 main roles played respectively by Tony Leung, Aaron Kwok, and Du Juan, in terms of their emotional relationship, which had a lot of space for creativity, but also a lot of room for development. I got to know them a lot during the shoot, and with some of the discoveries of their personalities that I've made, I improvised some extra scenes in the script.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're spanning from the 40s to the 80s. It's very impressive. So, and it's starring, 2 of Hong Kong's greatest actors, and you're returning to work with Aaron Kwok, who starred in Port of Call. But I read that it took some convincing to get Tony Leung, about 2 months, and you had to travel to him. Tell me about what finally convinced Tony Leung to star.
其實我同梁朝偉第一次喺上海大家見咗面之後咧，其實佢已經好有興趣合作噶啦。佢就形容呢個係一個 Once Upon a Time in Hong Kong， 咁佢好想知道拍出嚟係點咯，即係呢部戲。咁佢都話呢個角色令到佢回憶咗好多佢自己嘅一啲往事咯。咁後來好似阿叻咁講啦，即係經過咗2個月，即係嗰個即係游說又好咩都好啦，但係其實我都冇乜點游說，即係最主要就係經過2個月，大家成為咗朋友。咁我覺得佢係信任我嘅，即係佢即係覺得呢個人可以合作嘅，咁所以佢就放棄咗本來嘅 plan， 好有個放假嘅本來嘅，咁嚟拍呢個電影咯，係。
Tony Leung had indicated while in Shanghai, he had indicated his interest in working with me after the first time we met. He thought that this is a once upon a time in Hong Kong, and he wanted to know how it would turn out on film. He said the role made him recall many of his own memories of his life. 2 months later, I felt that we had become friends, and I felt that he trusted me. So rather than needing to convince him, I felt that he was ready to join the film, and he actually gave up a long-planned vacation to be in my film.
其實我補充一啲，其實就佢電影裏邊藍光嘅角色，我係用咗佢好多佢本人嗰啲性格嘅一啲嘢，或者佢甚至乎佢對感情嗰啲態度啊，或者佢啲人生觀啊咁樣，甚至乎佢一啲講過嘢就係我攞咗嚟做對白。咁所以我覺得即係梁朝偉呢個即係其實藍光有啲係好似梁朝偉，好似一個 reflection， 一個折射出嚟嗰個化身嚟嘅。因為我當時啱啱認識呢個，即係因為我梁朝偉嗰日識咧，但係我啱啱當時真係即係識咗佢，咁我好多發現咯，即係喺發現咗佢好多嘢，我覺得好得意，咁我覺得好有意思。咁我認為第一次合作應該係咁咯，即係喺佢自己身上面去發掘咗啲嘢嚇。
I wish to supplement that in the role of Nam Kong, I used a lot of Tony Leung's personal characteristics, his attitudes towards love, some of his philosophies of life, and even some things that he had said. I used those in his dialogue. So the role is somewhat of a refraction of Tony Leung, because of course I knew Tony Leung, but I knew him as a person for the very first time. I made a lot of discoveries about him as a person. I think that's a great way to work together for the first time and to use his own personality to develop the character.
Interesting. That's very, because I was going to ask how well known the story of these two corrupt cops is, considering you're working within the period of the four great generals in 1960s Hong Kong. And so you were able, I'm assuming then, to have a lot of leeway or liberty in creating their characters.
係啊，因為係啊，我知道，但係即係佢因為呢幾個人嘅歷史咧，即係啲探長咧，其實好多人知嘅，但係亦都因為好多版本嘅佢哋，因為正規嗰啲歷史唔係好多，即係好似啲野史嚟講佢哋，即係好似都係啲口耳相傳，所以其實創作嘅空間好大咯。咁所以我只係用咗兩個好似一啲傳說中嘅人物作為個雛形咯，個創作嗰個程度十分，即係好似創作程度好大嘅。同埋我即係加多一句咧，即係我意思係其實我覺得好似有少少借佢哋幾個人去講一啲香港嘅往事。
It is true that many people know their history, but there are very many different versions because actually not much has been officially recorded. So these are just, my versions or the characters' versions of these people. I had used the two legendary figures as legends, as they're portrayed in legend, to develop their characters. So there was a lot of room for creativity.
I like that reference, Once Upon a Time in Hong Kong. I was going to ask what your kind of cinematic inspirations were in approaching. There are a lot of really interesting visual textures. Like there was a scene where there's a shot from below of somebody running on the street, which, one of many elements I really liked. But with Tony Leung, you can't help but think a little bit of Infernal Affairs. But were there any specific films that you wanted to channel?
我諗好多啲嗰啲即係有好多嘅，因為我睇過好多電影，我有啲人睇過一部電影，覺得呢部係一部影迷電影嘅，即係佢嚟自好多唔同嘅 reference 嘅。咁我有好多係嗰啲50-60年代嘅啲頭先講過啲粵語片嗰啲歌舞片咧，有好多 reference 係嚟自嗰度嘅。係啊，咁好多個別嘅鏡頭其實就好難講係嚟自邊度，因為好多電影都有啲 reference。因為我其實亦都有啲可以係一啲某啲向某啲電影致意嘅，包括有一場戲咧落雨有個小朋友咧嗰度嗰個落雨嗰個小朋友嗰件衫直頭就係 Once Upon a Time in America 嗰個小朋友個衫一樣，咁都有呢啲 reference 咯，係。
This a lot of people who have seen the film have called it a film fans film because he referenced a lot of movies because he likes to watch a lot of movies, and some of them are scenes that are inspired by certain movies. A lot of the style was influenced by the Cantonese Hong Kong musicals of 1950s to 60s. And then there are certain specific references, such as the one scene when it was raining, the shirt that the kid was wearing is based on the one from Once Upon a Time in America.
Oh, yes. Tony.
Robert De Niro.
The young Robert De Niro. Yeah.
Yes.
The
young one.
I read that your grandmother used to tell you stories about old Hong Kong. So, and I can feel your reverence for this period in history on the screen. So I'm assuming this has been something that you've kind of been wanting to tell for a long time.
How do you know that? 我直接答得啦。我覺得佢講得好好啊！呢個因為真係，因為嗰啲40年代嗰啲咧，嗰啲40、50、60年代，直頭就係我阿嫲同我講嗰啲故仔嚟嘅。 咁對我嚟講，即係好似夢咁，因為佢同我講又唔知真定假，對佢嚟講好遠，即係好似夢咁嘅。包括嗰啲日本侵華嗰陣時嗰段香港淪陷嗰段時期咧，我個舅公係嗰啲遊擊隊嚟嘅，即係揸槍。咁佢亦都同我講好多啲故仔。咁仲有啲好多社會上面好多嘢都係好有趣、好得意嘅。同我講嘅時候，我覺得哇好多嘢。咁其實嗰啲嘢香港仲有噶嘛嗰陣時，咁我覺得好有趣咯。咁我好細個就好中意同啲大人啊、同啲長輩傾偈。仲有我爸爸，因為我爸爸係60、70年代嘅時候，好多古仔係佢同我講嘅，即係佢成長嘅年代。咁嗰陣時香港好多啲唔同嗰啲大陸嗰啲省份嗰啲人嚟香港生活嘅。咁再加上因為嗰陣時殖民地英國好多嘢啦，咁所以我覺得成個城市好有故事感咯。咁所以我覺得佢講得好好咯，即係好似當時我阿嫲同我講呢啲故事嘅時候咧，我已經覺得好似有啲故事係等住俾我講出嚟咁樣。咁好可惜我嫲嫲前年已經唔喺度，所以冇辦法喺電影院睇到呢部。
Oh.
Yeah.
He thinks it's incredibly well put that he wanted to tell these stories. These are stories that are waiting to be told. A lot of because the film spanned so many decades, the stories from the 1940s to the 1960s were told by his grandmother, but for her it was still in the past, and when she told it, you're not really sure whether they're true or entirely true, and it always sounded like she was in a dream or in a trance. Especially the stories with the Japanese invasion. One of his great uncles was a member of the guerrilla forces, and so he also told a lot of stories. As did Philip liked to hang with adults, and all of them liked to tell him stories. His father, and at that time there were also people that came to China from different provinces, came to Hong Kong from different provinces in China. Plus, with colonialism, there were always very interesting and very different stories as well. So you're absolutely right in that these are stories that are waiting to be told. Unfortunately, Philip's greatest inspiration, his grandmother, died 2 years ago and was never able to see this movie.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. But yes, there's a lot of detail and a lot of even smaller stories packed in here that are very interesting. I think one of my favorite lines from the film is at the very end when we have a character saying, there are two kinds of memories: things worth remembering and things we'd rather not remember. I think it really encapsulates.
Aaron Cott, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I also read that you used to be a film critic at one point.
Yeah.
Do you still, when you're making a film, are you also keeping in mind that perspective as well?
唔係，即係我覺得我嘅電影係有個影評人嗰個感覺喺度嘅，即係有啲好似有啲分析性啦。同埋我記得阿 Ann 虛同我講，即係佢覺得電影好重要，佢提過，即係佢覺得係一種即係 contemporary，跟住佢講當代性。咁特別係對香港，即係我講嗰啲當代性，特別對香港嚟講，因為我喺香港長大啊嘛。咁有時都係，我會覺得好似有時我喺度 respond 一啲當代電影一啲類型咯，同埋一啲而家啲當代電影一啲形式，即係我好覺得我同啲電影對話。咁甚至乎我自己覺得我自己拍嘅戲好似有啲影迷電影嘅感覺嘅，即係會好似向一啲我自己中意嘅電影致敬咯。咁都會有啲唔止電影嘅，可能有啲我中意睇嘅書啊，或者啲唔同嘅文化嘅嘢咯。即係我覺得呢個都似係一個影評人或者影迷諗嘢會創作出嚟嘅嘢。
Yes, he feels like his films are it feels like a film critic's film because he actually does a lot of analyzing. Ann Hui, who is, of course, as you know, another famous Hong Kong director, had told him that film has the most important part of film is the contemporariness of the film. And so his films are his response to the genres of the times, the styles of the times. It's almost like Philip is having a conversation with the film and with the books that had inspired him to make the films.
Yes, I like that. Of your previous 3 films, I haven't that you directed, I have not seen. I have seen Rigor Mortis, which you wrote, which was a really interesting genre film. But I'm saying that in respect to, this is a much more ambitious film than your past three, on a larger scale. And I know it's shot for what, 88 days or something. So if you want to tell me, let's end with what was the most difficult part in approaching a project this large?
我可以直接答啦，因為即係其實我諗最主要都係頭先嗰個講嗰個美術上面嗰樣嘢咯，即係對於嗰個舊年代嗰個還原咯，係最難嘅。因為我哋需要好多喺啲大陸嗰啲搭景啊，同埋要揾一啲可以重現香港嘅地方，因為你有啲又唔可以完全搭嘅，即係我哋揾啲舊樓嚟去重建改佢。咁我哋都去咗幾個城市嘅，即係中間啲搭景同埋嗰啲改造嗰啲工程都係非常之複雜咯嚇。咁亦都做咗比較多考究嘅嘢咯。咁包括啲攝影同啲衫其實都要配合，即係嗰樣嘢。咁點樣可以做到一個比較完整同埋比較統一嘅風格嘅？呢個係比較難嘅。
So yeah, the most difficult was the art department in their recreation of the texture and the styles of the time. Because those things don't exist in Hong Kong anymore. They had to go to many different cities to find old buildings, to reconstruct and to alter, but you can't, rebuild everything all the time. So, the amount that you can change and the amount to change, the details to add, whatever would recreate that era convincingly. Also the costumes and the style of cinematography, and how to tie everything together in one unified style.
Well, I have to say, I think it came together quite well. All of those textures blend together. And, thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. And let's end this interview with a line from Tony Leung's character, Nam, which is Hong Kong. It's a place where anything can happen.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. Yes, it feels that way. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Eric from IONCINEMA.com. If you want to support us, subscribe below. For more reviews, interviews, film festival coverage from Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, you want to check out these guys on this side.